Hello, everyone.
And welcome to Real English Conversations. I'm Jasmine.
And I'm Josh. I'm Jasmine's husband.
And I'm Josh's wife.
Woohoo! And today we are going to have a real English conversation about traveling.
We will explain difficult words and phrases here so you can stop the video if you don't understand.
So let's get started. So I know that you've been to quite a few countries. What would you say got you into traveling in the first place? What got you interested in traveling?
That's a good question. I remember ever since I was a little girl, I had a huge fascination. I was super interested in other cultures and languages.
Yeah.
My mom always, we had books all over the house with different countries and cultures, and my mom would cook a bunch of different types of foods, and I remember she got us computer games to where we could learn language, and we had these books at the library in elementary school that we could check out that were just a book about a country.
Okay, yeah.
And then my mom took us to this really cool place called Epcot, which is in Orlando, Florida. It's part of Disney.
Yeah.
And basically at Epcot, it's 7 countries, I think.
Okay.
That you go around. They remake a country, and they even have people from the country working there.
That's cool.
So ever since I was really young, I just had this passion and huge curiosity. I was just so interested in learning about other cultures, and I always pictured myself living in another country one day. Ever since I was a child.
Yeah.
And so basically high school was the first opportunity I had to do that. And so when the first opportunity came, I took it. And that's kind of how, I think I answered your question, how I got interested in traveling. Yeah.
No, that's cool. It's neat how it's from a very young age. It wasn't even just later on. I think for me, it probably developed later on in life. But that's cool. From that young age, you were just super interested in different cultures and countries and everything. It's cool. And then your first trip in high school, that was to India? Or to Panama?
That was to Panama. And actually, it was right after I graduated high school.
Okay.
So I had graduated on June, I don't remember the day, but it was literally, I just remember 10 days after I graduated.
Yeah, right away.
For a month. Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. So, that's awesome. Sweet. Yeah, and then Panama, did that kind of build up and further fill that fire, fan that flame of wanting to go over and travel and stuff? Or what was that like?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I loved Panama, first of all. I really loved it. Even though before I went to Panama, I was kind of interested in going more to Asia at first. Even as a little girl, I remember I had a classmate, a girl in my class with me who she also was interested in some other cultures, and we tried to learn Japanese by ourselves. So I always loved Asia for some reason.
Yeah.
But I studied Spanish in high school, and so going to Panama was amazing because I got to use my Spanish. I used the language. I loved Panama, and as soon as I got back, I was already thinking about how do I go to another country again for a longer period of time, because I graduated high school in 3 years, you know, and so...
You're super smart.
I just did school on the weekend when I should have been hanging out with friends and socializing. But so because I had that year off, I decided to take as a gap year, to not start school again right after graduating. I got back from Panama, and I'm like, okay, I have this year, I have this time, where can I go for a longer term? Because I was in Panama for a month, which is still pretty long. But so that's when I ended up finding the trip to India and went to India for 4 months. But yeah,
you're super cool because very, very different culture there.
Yeah,
right?
Extremely different. I mean, Panama was maybe an 2-hour plane ride from Florida, something like that. And India is obviously all the way across the world, a 16 or 18-hour flight. So.
And you didn't know any of the language when you went there, right?
I studied a teeny bit.
Okay.
I knew some phrases and some conversational things in Bengali.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I picked up on a decent amount when I was there, but I could understand things of Bengali. But
cool.
Not the way I knew Spanish.
Yeah. What were some of the most shocking things for you, or things that like were like, did you experience a lot of culture shock there, or more reverse culture shock when you came back, or what was that like for you?
In Panama or India?
India.
Okay, yeah. So it's funny. I'm trying to think. I don't feel like I experienced a ton of culture shock. I mean, even though it's like such a different place from the United States, I don't know. I'm trying to think.
Like you were kind of prepared for it?
I felt prepared, I think. And I wanted to really immerse myself in the culture. Like I wanted to be as in it as I possibly could. Like I didn't want to just live a foreigner life. Like I wanted to live like the Indian people.
Yeah, that's
and
awesome.
So I think because I went in with that mindset, like with that idea, it helped maybe with the culture shock.
Like if somebody were going primarily for vacation, like and just vacation, they're like, I just want to go and have fun and enjoy. A lot of people, they would more so go the direction of like, I just want to do Western things.
Yeah.
Right? But you were going like, I want to actually get to know this culture. I want to get to know these people and engage, because you were helping with orphans there, right? And so you wanted to like actually see what are their real lives like, which is cool.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's neat.
Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah, I enjoy that as well. Like that was something like when I was over in Saudi Arabia, that a lot of people, they would always ask me when I would meet them, like, oh, so do you live in a compound? Because that's just the reputation is most Westerners. When they go over there, they live in compounds and they kind of seclude themselves, keep themselves separate from everyone else. And I was like, why? Like, I can do that in America. When you go over to another country, you kind of, like, I want to actually engage with the culture, get to know the people, see what's special and unique, because I think that's something that every culture has such amazing beauty to it, and every culture has brokenness to it. And so it's great to go to other countries and see how I can glean from the good, and learn the bad of even my own culture. And so, but you don't do that if you just stay with your own culture and say like, oh no, this culture is bad. So it's cool you're able to do a lot of that.
Yeah, with Saudi Arabia, obviously, so the thing that's interesting about India is it's such a drastically different world compared to the United States. I mean, it's so like the degree to which it's different is a huge amount. It's extremely different from the US. Saudi Arabia is also really different from the US. However, like with India, you have such a huge range of like, especially the poverty or the varying socioeconomic status, like people's incomes, just how people live, even when they have money, is so different from the United States because of culture. Saudi Arabia, what I've seen is that even their infrastructure, like their buildings and some of their homes even, are more similar to the United States.
Yeah, very modernized.
Yeah, modernized. What was your experience with culture shock? Did you have it, or like, did Saudi feel super different from the U.S. or what was that like?
Yeah, no, good question. Yeah, I don't think I experienced like a ton of culture shock. Definitely some to differing degrees, but I think one thing that was helpful was when I was in college, I had some Saudi friends. So I had already gotten to know some Saudis and hang out with them. And so I kind of got a feel for what the culture was like from them. And then I had also done an internship in Morocco for 2 months. And so still very different cultures from each other, but there were some similarities there. And so, and I tried to do some reading about it ahead of time to kind of figure out like, what am I getting myself into? But yeah, I think it was overall, like I didn't have a lot of challenges in that. I think I was just kind of content, like whatever goes on, like I'm just excited. Like I expected it to be very different. So I wasn't surprised that it was different. But that probably was more surprised with the similarities. Like I remember when I was going from the Dammam airport to where I was going to be staying, just driving back. I think it was just like a 30-minute drive. But I remember like going past and seeing all these Western restaurants where it was like, what was it like? There was even Chuck E. Cheese.
Oh,
that
really?
Chuck E. Cheese is pretty crazy. When I saw that, I was like, wow. But yeah, Red Lobster, Longhorn Steakhouse, all these different restaurants. And I was like, wow, you have more American restaurants than I have in my hometown. So I think with that was kind of a little, maybe more surprised of just how much a lot of things intermixed, which was cool. So, yeah.
I think you talk like that idea of you talked about like expectations. I think that is probably why both of us didn't experience a ton of culture shock, because we didn't have expectations of it being like our home country.
Yeah.
Like we went in completely open and expecting it to be super different, to be a really different culture.
Yeah.
So it's almost like more shocking when you see things that are similar to your home culture, because you're like, oh, I'm expecting this to be really different.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
like, yeah, that was a weird experience when I was in India specifically. I lived in a very rural area, like almost villagey. It was like really small on the outskirts of Kolkata.
So very different.
Very different. But we would go more into the city center where it was like more modernized, because Kolkata is like a huge city. Okay. I think it's technically the capital, it is, of the state of West Bengal, India.
Okay, cool.
So of course they have a lot of like, you know, city center has more westernized type of life, more modernized. And it was so weird going to like a McDonald's like in India, because I'm like, wait, like what are these two worlds? And, but having the expectation of like how, and kind of what's your goal of traveling? Like you said, there's like tourism, but then if you go with a mindset of you want to know the people, be involved with the people, work there, volunteer there, that's a whole different mindset. So
yeah, that's cool. Awesome. I feel like I could probably talk with you for hours about this, as we often do.
Yeah.
But I'm glad that now we get to travel together.
Thank you guys so much for joining our conversation. We hope you enjoyed it. And if you want to improve your English, especially your listening and your speaking, we encourage you to practice by first summarizing. So try to think of everything we said in the conversation and try to say the main ideas, the main things we talked about, whatever you remember. So they talked about traveling, and Jasmine said, and like that. Whatever you remember, it's not going to be perfect. The goal is to get words out of your mouth. Mistakes are okay. Just try to speak. And the second thing would be shadowing. And shadowing is a little bit like this. If I'm watching the video, here's Jasmine. Yeah, I had this really gross dessert. I can't remember the name of it. It was at a street shop, and I tried it, and it just tasted and just so like that. Gross. Everything that you hear us saying, try to repeat. Try to say it. You won't get 100%. That's totally fine. Just any words that you hear, try to say those. And that's going to make you a stronger speaker and will help your pronunciation. So, we look forward to seeing you in our next video. Keep improving your future by improving your English.